It's a great honor and pleasure to have a chance to talk and to introduce Joshua Oppenheimer, a unique filmmaker who shook the world with his masterpiece, The Act of Killing, 8 years ago. You have been working, as far as I know, on totally different film when you start working on The Act of Killing. So, what was the main impulse to make this movie? That you wanted to tell the world community about this unknown genocide? Or you decided to make a movie after you met Anwar, one of the main protagonists of the film? So what pushed you to make this amazing film?
When I was working in Indonesia, all the way back in 2001, 2002, with a community of plantation workers who were struggling to make a documentary about their efforts to organize a union, I discovered that the women on this plantation, this Belgian-owned oil palm plantation, were dying from exposure, were dying in their 40s from exposure to a pesticide that was dissolving their livers. And the first thing they tried to do as a new trade union was demand that they shouldn't have to spray this chemical which was killing them. And the plantation company hired this paramilitary organization, Pancasila Youth, that goes around in orange camouflage and that you'll see at the center of the act of killing to threaten and then beat up these women. And the union dropped their demands immediately. And I said, how can you let this go after all this is killing you? And then they told me about the genocide. And they said that our parents and grandparents were killed by this same group in 1965 simply for being members of a plantation workers union. And they were afraid it would happen again because these paramilitaries were stronger than ever, more powerful than ever. And I realized at that moment what's killing my friends, these women I was living and working with, was not just pesticide, not just a chemical, but fear. And I realized decades after the genocide, and I realized therefore that in a terrible way the genocide never ended. That so long as there is impunity, the memory of violence can be used to keep people silent and afraid, which allows more violence to occur. So really I see the film as an expose of impunity, and I see impunity as the story of our times.
After watching your film, I have experienced something that I never experienced before. So I felt myself in a kind of limbo, that you're walking through a kind of purgatory, a limbo with your protagonists, Anwar and Hector. These people are, for me, not dead, not alive, so they are kind of punished, but they are still celebrating themselves. So this zone they are living in, for me, it was really a purgatory. So how you experienced them? Was it very difficult to work with them? Because they are terrible people, but fascinating documentary protagonists, and it's always challenging how to keep this human and filmmaking balance. And as far as I know, Anwar has died last year. So how you experienced his death, and tell us more about your relationship with the both guys.
That was frightening. I had, while shooting the film, there's a long passage leading to the film climax, and you'll be watching the director's cut of the film now, so it's something you really feel. There's a long passage where Anwar starts recreating what he did in the form of film noir gangster movies, and it becomes, the film there stops being documentary and it becomes a kind of fever dream. And it was years of living in a kind of fever dream with him. I wouldn't call Anwar was a friend, but I loved Anwar. And when he died, it was sad for me. And there was a strange moment when there were suddenly obituaries rightly describing the horror of the crimes that he committed and talking about his life as a terrible waste. Yeah, I mean, it was like losing someone I was very close to and made a very big impression, big impact on my life, even though Of course, we're not. Of course, I think he destroyed. I mean, his life was a tragedy, and he destroyed so many people. And I didn't end. The act of killing is not the complete work. There's a whole second film I made, which really kind of reveals why I did this, which is called The Look of Silence, which is about a family of survivors. But just to say it was painful when he died. It was like living in a purgatory to make this film.
So, being a filmmaker myself, I'm very curious to ask you about the production process of the movie, because so many hours of shootings, and in the titles there are several editors listed. And could you just tell us more how the production process and post-production process were guided? Did you edit in breaks, or you just how you evaluate materials, and how many versions of rough cuts have you done?
I did not edit really as I was shooting. I would watch material for the purpose of understanding what we had done and what we had and what would be interesting still to shoot. But I wasn't editing as I went. When I finished shooting really in 2009, we did a little bit more shooting in 2011, but we really finished shooting in 2009. From late 2009, we started editing, and there were 2 editors working side by side, 6 days a week with me. It was an exhausting year and a half, cutting 1,000 hours of material, or 1,200 hours of material, down to something like 23 hours of roughly edited scenes. And there's 3 editors credited for that role, because one of them had to stop in the middle. So that's 3 of the editors. And then once we had these 23 hours of scenes, Niels worked with me for about a year to make the actual film, the film that you're watching. And there's something for me really dreamlike about the film and about this period in my life. And the editing, I don't remember how many rough cuts we went through, but I suppose from that, we didn't have a rough cut. I suppose there were 6 or 7 rough cuts before we started fine cutting.